so I think that sometimes cataclysmic events restore balance. So for somebody who may have been abused, right? Look at Oprah. Okay, so Oprah was abused, just all these bad things, right?
Right.
So on some level, it was part of her upbringing, the people she was around, but at some point, she could have continued that and gone down that road. Maybe she had children and it would have repeated the pattern.
Right.
Or she would have taken that and created something else with it. So now she's built foundations and schools to protect people from that, right? So she has now awakened consciously and is able to shift that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but
who's to say? Now, I want to throw this out there. Who's to say that? Now, this is kind of going. I don't want to say against what you were saying, but who's to say that those experiences that she had needed to be an integral part of her childhood or young adult for her to be who she is now?
And I think what that would be the part of pre-planning that I agree with, whereas she would look at the parents in the situation and say,
or the abuser, or the...
Well, and just look at when she's being born, look at those circumstances and say, this is going to be tough, but I know this is going to be the contrast I need to really decide what I want and propel me towards what I want quickly.
Now, what happens if she realizes this and then she goes through this suffering and she's going to make something best of it and to help other people?
She did.
Right, she did. But what happens, I'm saying, is just that she's starting to get to that level,
Free will.
a free will madman comes in and destroys her life.
Well, I think a madman did at some point in her life by
killed her, I'm saying.
Trauma. Oh.
Yeah, but she would have to be a match to that.
Then her story wouldn't get out.
And it's possible if she was still in a match to that, then it could happen.
See, that's the part that's difficult for people.
But chances are it probably won't because of where she is.
Yeah. Well,
No. I'm saying,
when
before
she
she even got to that level,
Yeah.
before you even knew
Yeah.
her. So
Well,
I'm saying,
that's
what I'm saying is,
saying.
everyone that gets out there,
Yeah.
every innocent victim out there that's murdered, that's the whole part that I'm trying to get my head around, because they're drawing that
Well, think
murder
about
to them.
too. A lot of times through death, laws are changed. We have traffic laws and we have laws
that means
against
that- yeah,
humanity.
but that could be
so you almost
pre-planned.
wonder, right, if that's part of the...
Pre-planned?
Well, also,
If you have enough people dying in drunk driving accidents, it's at some point they're going to say, we have to have a law, .08 or whatever, right? So this doesn't necessarily mean that death was a loss.
I don't know that spirit ever plans for laws. Though.
I don't.
I think laws are actually...
Come from it.
I think laws are actually the opposing force to
Come
that,
from
that
it, right?
freedom, that spirit
So
of
I
laws.
always say, I try to say, I don't believe God
You
kills people.
libertarian?
Huh?
You a libertarian?
No, I'm just kind of whatever I feel
I
at
don't
the moment.
believe God kills people in drunk driving accidents. I do people do, and their free will, right? You know not to get behind a wheel when you are drunk, but people are going to do it anyway. But I think after that shifts out, source, God comes in and can now create something from it.
Sure. But what he's saying is that person that was sober brought that energy of being killed into it.
I'm saying that they were a match.
So would it be like a pre-planned destiny?
That's what I say. It would work in a pre-plan, but he's saying it doesn't make any difference if it's pre-planned. It just automatically.
Pre-planned. It's just that you're a match for it. And here's
So-
the thing you got to remember too.
So then,
is that
if you're a match for it, then people are just going about their lives just waiting to be matched up with.
Well, wait a minute.
people are going
If you're
through their lives.
consciously now,
No, he's saying subconsciously too.
well, that's what I mean,
But that's-
unconsciously.
That's why
But
there's so much suffering. in
it's
the world.
those. But we're saying it's those experiences that wake people up and
They
bring
can.
them back to consciousness.
They can
to
if they
realize,
change their perception.
If they survive.
which is something that I did, right? So I had
If
enough.
they survive. But I'm saying there's millions of
Yeah.
people that happen to it, they don't survive. They don't have the opportunity
But
to learn from suffering.
But don't forget though,
Because I think that's pre-planned.
when that event happens, I think that at the moment that soul energy has a choice to stay here or not.
Yes, I believe that.
But you got to also remember that at that level, there's no fear of death, and there's
Yes.
a complete understanding that
Oh, I agree with that.
So I mean, so it's not. We like to think of like how could someone choose to die, and when that happens to them, they say, You know, like, I'm okay with this. Like, this is cool.
Oh, I
So
don't have
I
a problem with
think-
that either.
I
Because
think
most
it's
near-death
free will.
experiences, people when they cross over, they're like, hell, I don't want to go back.
Mm-hmm.
You know, unless there's something going on with young children or something like that. But most of them are like, and they say, no, you have to go back. To some of them, they have other stuff that they have to learn or experience. But otherwise, they're like, no,
But
I
I
don't
think
want
it's
to
a
go.
choice. I think it's still a choice. So,
Yeah,
but I also
No, some
too,
people admit, no, in near-death experiences, a lot of them say it's not a choice. They tell
well, no,
them.
I'm talking about like when people
But
are
it's
passing, they have a choice.
No, I'm saying that once they're on the other side, some of them want to stay.
Yeah.
And they say, no, you can't
Yeah.
stay.
Yeah,
So
the point
that-
that's not their strongest point of attraction. Law of attraction is about the path of least resistance,
Mm-hmm.
right? And sometimes for people, the path of least resistance to relieve them of suffering and pain or whatever is dying. And sometimes the path of least resistance is
coming back.
coming back to the life.
How can that be least than dying and staying in nirvana or whatever?
Because it depends on what they're looking to create.
If they realize, so
It's
I,
not the easiest.
well, so I have
That's
to
the
say,
pre-plan.
I attempted to take my life when I was 19. I had great depression. I wanted the pain to stop. I wanted to go to sleep. I do believe on some level, something stepped in or some, because it was at that point that everything shifted for me. But I believe I had
agree.
a choice.
I think
I
you-
believe I had a choice. Am I going to go? Or am I going to make something of this? Am I going to transform it? I feel like that was the point that I had my awakening.
I think you had total free will and you also had a pre-planned. And when these things, events in your life happened, you were aware of them and then you changed it to become who you are. And I think it's for a reason. I think you're going to help people that you have never met. You know, right now, in 10, 15, 20 years, you could be saving lives.
Yeah.
And you knew that back then when you went through these.
Well,
So
I
I
have
think
to
you're
say,
a perfect example
I
of,
do
of like
say-
the pre-planned,
Yeah.
learning the suffering and your awakening.
I do say, like, when I have clients coming in and they've had loved ones commit suicide, I can completely understand what their thinking was, especially when they leave children behind and they're like, but they had a son and they had a wife.
Yeah.
I totally can understand their thinking
So-
in that space.
I want to throw a big wrench in here.
Uh-huh.
We'll see where this
Okay.
goes. Who's saying that the same Gladys that tried to kill herself is the Gladys that's here now?
That's what I believe. I believe somebody else stepped in because there's
No,
a lot of
I think it's the
things.
same one, but she just awakened to who she really was.
Is there-
So I
Is there a
believe this
difference?
is what I believe. I believe that the person who left was the person that was carrying all of this, the mother, single mother, the alcoholic father, the fear, the drama. I believe that person did die. And this spiritual part, at some point, I remember thinking, there's got to be more than this. And I remember feeling not alone, and I knew there was something around. But yes, so it's kind of both. Like, I don't believe it was a whole different person. I believe it was my truth,
Yes.
the like what I was here to do. But I believe I also had a choice too. I think at some point
Yeah.
I could have decided to go
Sure.
and said, I'm done. I don't want to suffer
Right.
anymore. I don't want to do this. But I think there's something in me that said, now I can teach. Now I can. So
That
it was-
you had to go through that to be able to get where you
but
are.
I think it could have been many other ways too.
So what I'm trying to say with this is that within the sea of consciousness, who you are as Gladys is a part of that sea of consciousness focused upon this physical body. The body has memories that creates a cohesive experience of one lifetime. And what I'm saying is the part of Gladys that was suffering,
Yes.
the path of least resistance was death. And so that Gladys took her life. But there's a part within that sea of consciousness, and part of it was what was with Gladys before, and part of it might have been some other energies that came in and said, the path of least resistance for us is to continue this lifetime because we want to be a teacher, we want to do this and
Yeah.
that. And so a part of what was Gladys focused away, and other energies from that
Consciousness.
consciousness focused within.
Yeah.
But it's still a cohesive experience for you because
It's
you
still-
have all the memories. You have
It's
all
still Gladys.
Yeah.
It's just different facets of Gladys.
but it's different parts, energies within that
Yeah,
sea of
totally.
consciousness. And it's
Right.
Totally. And again, I believe it was a lot of those old beliefs, old ways of doing things. And so from 19, because it was only less than 10 years later that I started my practice. So it was almost like a shift, but I still to this day know that I have a choice to be here. You know what I mean? And that, you know, on some level that night, I feel like there was some awakening, there was some shift, there was some
Epiphany.
like book that was opened and said, oh, I get it.
It was a new focus within.
And I have to say, and that's when the angels were introduced into my life, right? And that's why I always say, I believe it was the angels that brought me back, because for me at that point, it was something that I could believe in, because God was not happening, right? I didn't have any way or anybody around me that could teach me any of that. So for me, that was the energy that I chose to work with. And from there, everything else unfolded from it.
So did the angels bring you back, or was it a part of that sea of consciousness that focused upon Gladys that had a belief in angels? And so
Well,
by
I
focusing
don't know,
upon
because
that,
I didn't
it
know
attracted
anything
that
about
in.
them before. Like
But that's what
before,
I'm saying. This is a new part
Yeah.
of consciousness that's focused. So where the wrench comes in with this is people have this concept of a soul being one soul, one body, one energy, one lifetime. And what I've been hearing,
you're saying it's a collection of energy.
what I've been told from my guides and stuff is that's more of a human.
Oh, God, yeah.
interpretation
Well, we've
of
talked
the
about
soul.
that before,
Yeah.
that we're multi-dimensional beings living multiple lives at the same time.
And
I believe
the
that.
energies within consciousness shift so that who Nathan is now is different than Nathan when he's going to be driving
Yes.
home, because Nathan now
Yes.
is more than what he will be maybe driving home. Maybe, I don't know, but because there's certain energies that are, you might say, channeling whatever, but
Absolutely.
are focused upon that are bringing
There could
information.
be different,
Same thing with you and
different
you.
levels of energy within your own soul.
And it's funny
They
because
don't have to be from outside.
it's funny
I
because
think they can. I think it's.
They
I
can,
think it can
right.
be both.
Right, it can be both.
Absolutely.
and there is a difference, because when I speak in public, let's say in front of the church, I feel like I'm really in my power. I feel good. I feel empowered. I feel like I got something to say. When I had my 10-year anniversary celebration, I was totally out of my comfort zone, right? Why? Because I didn't have this
You were in control.
energy, right? People's attention was on me and they were talking about me as a person, right? But I don't always identify with that person because I'm always working with this higher energy, right? So I find that both were public, but I found like I was more fearful giving my speech that night at my anniversary party from my
Party where you
business.
should have been relaxed and having fun.
And I
right?
was more anxious than when I'm speaking in front of 100 people at the church, right? And again, so yeah, there are different aspects that come in, and I have to say, I'm conscious of that, and I'm learning to befriend all of them. Right? So I recognize that at the party and saying, okay, what in my vibration? Is it still the self-esteem stuff? Is it the worth stuff? Again, just recognizing it and saying, no, I feel really good. And that was a good experience. So I took a lot from that, but you're right. I believe there are different aspects of Gladys, right? And I think this is an example of how it plays out in my podcast, the YouTube channel, when I speak, when I channel with clients, and then when I'm out with my friends. There's always a different aspect of me. I'm not this spiritual person. When I go out with I have friends that I go out with. Every time I go out with them, I get drunk, right? That's not spiritual, Gladys.
Fun Gladys! Here we go! Ding, ding!
It is.
Apparently, we're not part of that part.
Yeah, no, we're not in that loop.
But I recognize it's a different aspect.
Yeah.
I'm the same person.
Yeah, how come we don't get the fun Gladys all the time?
Because Gladys's body can't take that all the time. So, but again, I recognize that, like, that's me being human. That's a human aspect of just enjoying life for what it is and not having to be on or spiritual. So, yeah, I do, from my perspective and all the different avenues that I have, they are different people.
Yeah.
Even though this is like one person.
Yeah, because the cohesion is, I think in some ways it's actually almost, there's two things. I think there's the thought forms that we have of who we are ourselves that keep it cohesive, and there's the certain memory within the brain that feeds on that. So you create a cohesive experience of Nathan, even though at different times there's different voices speaking through Nathan and
Yeah.
Joe and Gladys.
And I have to say, even so, when I got out of that relationship, right, I had given myself to time off to discover who I am. But I even had to learn how to be someone's significant other. Even now, like I'm still learning who I am in a loving, committed, happy, healthy relationship, because that's not something I've never known. So I think every experience, like I know Gladys is the business owner, I know Gladys as the daughter, I know Gladys as, but I think you keep having these roles where you have to develop parts of yourself, right? So now I'm working on, exactly, I'm working on Gladys as maybe this possible wife and mother, right? I've never had that experience, right? So you're constantly moving in that, while continuing to shift in these other vibrations of these other aspects that are part of you.
Yeah. And as you're creating that, you're going to
That's a
realize.
cool concept.
Unless you,
And once you get into it, you know,
This is
you
fun.
create what you think it's going to be like to be a dad. And then once you are a dad, you're constantly recreating that because
until you walk into a convenience store and someone shoots you, and then then
resistance,
Nathan,
like,
there's
"Oh, we don't have to
Nathan.
worry about that anymore."
Well, that
Nathan just
probably-
up all the fun.
Well, it probably won't happen to
Edit that.
Solomon, let's say, because that's not in either of their vibration.
Yeah, he's probably
Huh?
going to.
How do you know?
I assume he's going to take over the world, but
How do you know it's not in Solomon's vibration?
Well, it's not in their vibration.
How do you know that?
Do you believe somebody's going to come in and shoot you?
No,
not me,
what
but I
happens?
don't know what's in
What if
Alon's
someone comes in
vibration.
and shoots
I don't know
Solomon?
what's in.
Does that mean it's in his vibration?
Well, he was saying earlier that based on what you're around, you can absorb those belief systems, right? Subconsciously.
I think children mimic it, which is why I
Yeah,
think a
mimic.
lot of-
That's the word you used.
you know, I think children feel energy, and they just like with, you know, they mimic what you say and they mimic what you do, the actions you take. I think they mimic a certain vibrational pattern until they start consciously choosing and you know,
Until they turn teenagers.
And I appreciate how you owned that. You didn't own, you owned yours, but not Alana's.
Yeah.
Right? Because you'd think as being his significant other, you would
That
know
she would.
everything about her, but you really don't. So you can't always predict.
And a lot of times, I think a lot of problems people have within relationships is
Assumption?
assuming that people have the same point of attraction, or they have the same wants and
Right.
beliefs, and that they feel the same way. And that's why you can never, if you want a successful relationship, you constantly have to recreate what
Danny
it's like
and
to be
I
a
are
partner.
always talking about
Yeah.
that, reevaluating what we thought, what we want, like, and that's where they say communication is key, because we're
Exactly.
always talking. We have phone dates every single night. If we're not together, we have phone dates, and there's always a conversation about the day. Isn't that great? Phone dates.
I almost went,
Aw.
it's cute. Go ahead.
But
Go
I have
ahead.
to say, communication is huge with us, and we're not afraid to have, like, well, the tough conversations as well. I'm more afraid than he is, but I'm working on, okay, well, this is my belief, and let's work through this, and let's think about this, and this is what I'm saying. I'm learning more about myself through this type of relationship than I ever have, right?
And that's
in
why
that aspect.
it's so funny when you see people, and it's like, how could that person say this to me? Don't they know this about me? And it's like, maybe they don't. And you shouldn't assume that they do just because they've been with you for 10 years, because first of all, you're not the same person that they met 10 years ago. And secondly, how good have you been at communicating?
If you're not telling them your wants and your needs, if you're not, because again, a lot of times, and I have to say, even like with women, we want to do and say and be it all, right? We want to hand it all, carry all the groceries, do all this, right? So when you're asking somebody to help you, but you've put out that persona that you can do it all, you're now getting angry at the person when you've probably told them no 100 times, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's what drives men crazy.
They're like, yep, exactly. But it's vice versa too. You know, men, they've got to be like this force, right?
And again, it's always co-creative. So in some ways, it's
They're
doesn't have to
attracting
be
that,
the other
right?
person's fault too.
And they're attracting that because that's.
Women, if women see men showing their emotion, they're turned off by that.
I'm not. Clearly.
Well, it's a different generation now, but I mean, you know, at times that was true. So men suck it up. You know, the expression, "Oh,
Yeah.
suck it up." You're a guy. You're not supposed to be like that.
It's giving that person space to be who they are, right? There's this quote that I have, like, true love is not like physical or emotional. True love is accepting the person for like who they are, what they're gonna be. There are a couple others, and then also too, one of the things that really hit me was, and who they are not. And I was like, wow, like, you know, gosh, I get it. This is this person. Okay, so they're not social people and they're not this and they're not that. I can still love them and being able to do these other things in other ways, right? And I think that's
Instead of
that
trying
part
to change
of,
them.
it's that
How
part
many
of,
people try to change the other person?
Instead
Yeah.
of changing themselves.
and
That's
true
right.
love is accepting the person as they are, who they are now, who they will be tomorrow and 10 years from now. And I think in a relationship, your ideal is to create space for each other, right? And not like micromanage or intertwine. It's just not being somebody's mother or father or caretaker. It's creating space for them to be who they are, to develop. And I think that's where these relationships get stunted, because one's growing and the other one's subconsciously or maybe consciously fearful of that, right? Well, they're going to do this and they're going to leave me, and it creates this
And sometimes it's not even about one growing and the other one not, but it's just about both people not accepting the other person. I think it's
I
interesting.
think it could be very basic
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
Because I think once you get into the growing, there's many different reasons why people, and they bring all that garbage in,
Yeah.
and that can affect relationships. But I think the basic thing, like Nathan said, is they just don't respect the other person on
Yeah.
a certain level, or they don't want to.
Or how about if the person getting into the relationship really doesn't know themselves fully, so they appear to be what this person wants,
Yep.
right? Because they want to be in this relationship. And then after things are comfortable, then they're like going back to who they are, and this person's like, well, wait a minute, you said this and you said that. So you can even have that. So I think it's really important when you get into any type of relationship, a friendship, even working or whatever, I think it's crucial to know who you are in this point in time, so that you are laying it out there and being your most authentic self. And I think this is the vibration that we've been moving towards, like authenticity, right? Who am I in this career? Who am I, and how do I fit in this relationship or this friendship?
Because
I think that's very important.
it gives you a better chance of success, because if you're already at that place where you're honest with yourself and you know who you are and that's what you're putting out there, then the person coming into it is there with you, and there's not this sudden having to accept something new.
Like in my relationship with Danny's always been who he is by default. Like he's not, like, let's say, conscious and all this. Well, he probably is more so now, but Danny has always been who he is. That's never changed. And my frustrations have been wanting him to be this or wanting to do this or wanting to, and one of the things that I respect the most about him is he loves himself in a non-egotistical way. Like he will put up a barrier, he will try, right? But if it's totally out of his comfort zone and it's not working for him, he will say, this isn't working for me, let me scale it back, or he will communicate that. And so he's taught me about, well, how does this fit for me? And because I've always been one to cater to people, right? And okay, I'll be what you want and I'll do what you want. And so coming and seeing this person who's just who he is, we've been together almost 2 years and he's still who he is from this first day I met him. Yeah. I feel like I've shifted. I mean, I'm not saying he hasn't grown, he hasn't shifted. Of course he has.
Quite a bit,
but for the most part, it's like he's
your
still...
Your perception of him hasn't changed.
Right. What do you mean?
I'm saying that
Wait a minute.
he's actually probably changed quite a bit from his perspective.
Yes.
But from your perception of him hasn't changed.
Certain parts. Yeah. The things that I admire and respect.
Yeah,
the things that I admire and respect. Exactly. That's it. And that's what I'm saying. Like in our relationship, we've both grown, in that space. And I have to say, his career hasn't really been a focus. It was like, okay, this is a job. Now his career is like, okay, I'm advancing and I'm moving and I'm growing. Why? Because I'm in that space, right? So when you know yourself, I think...
Giving you looks.
Why? Not because of him, but because of me? Is that what you're saying?
So what do you mean?
You know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
Then say it.
Okay, because you said, oh, Joe's making funny because you said that his career is changing because
of me,
of your focus of your career.
Well, I think it's just being in that energy, right? So you're with somebody who's passionate about their job. You're with somebody who's
I mean, you're
excited.
supporting, right?
Right,
You're
and so
supporting
you
each other.
naturally,
Energetic influence.
exactly, right, in a non-egotistical way.
Right.
It was just funny.
It's just the way it said it. It was like a big softball. I had to hit it
His life's getting better because of me.
because of me.
But that's good. But yes, in that way, it's like by absorbing. And the same
your
thing
support.
for me, right? I'm shifting and changing by his influence, by him speaking up for himself and setting boundaries for people. And I'm like, wow, that worked. I'm going to try that, right?
Yeah.
But again, free will, I have a choice whether to take it in or not, right? Same thing for him.
I think that it's funny because I love listening to when like Esther talks about relationships with people and they like, you know, should I be staying in this relationship where they don't want the same things as me, or should I be moving on? And she's like, well, you can be happy staying in the relationship and you can be happy leaving it. And it's
your choice.
It's kind of your choice. It's funny because I've had people come up to me and say like, you know, I'm trying to manifest abundance, but my partner's not doing the same things, and like I don't know how to do this. And my thought is, well, if you manifest yourself being a millionaire, you don't need them to manifest money because you're a millionaire, and by you bringing the money in, their vibration's going to either change because they're going to start accepting the fact that they have money, so they're going to expect to have money, and their point of attraction is going to change,
Or
they'll fall away, and there'll be a distance, and then they'll end up leaving. But you don't have to have the other person be something for you to be it, you know. And that's the biggest misconception people have is like,
They're stopping me.
We don't
or
have
they're
money because you're not working. It's like, well, why don't you make more money? Why don't you manifest more money? Why don't you manifest a better job for yourself?
oh yeah, say that and not get hit by a plate.
I know.
But that's
Hit
fine.
by a plate.
It's like when I
What relationship have you been in?
No, but I mean it's true. I mean you've seen that play out for a long time.
Plate.
You know what I mean? It's like,
I have this visual of some
It's
woman
like-
out there slinging plates at somebody.
yeah, you know, you get a job. No, you just go out and make more money. You know what I mean? It's like,
like in like Three Stooges skit or something.
Yeah.
Smash.
yeah. Well, I could see a wife, you know, hauling a plate at a guy who's sitting home all day watching
never heard of
football games, and she's out working 3 jobs. And she gets ticked and says, "Hey, listen, you know, we need more money. You just get a job." And he's like, "No, you work more hours." He's going to get hit with a plate
But
or a vase or
but-
anything
but-
within arm's reach.
I'm not recommending that the person that's not working is the one that says this.
Very good.
Yes.
Non-recommendation.
Yeah.
You're saying take ownership of it. If you want more,
Saying if
go
you're-
for it.
If you're blaming your partner for you not having something, then all you're doing is keeping
Passing the buck?
You're keeping yourself powerless to change it.
Because
So you're saying dump the bomb.
Because you basically believe that they're hindering your progress.
Yeah. So you can dump them, or you can just say, you know what, I'm going to manifest so much money without having to work hard, and just the money it's going to come in. I'm gonna
More
create
money,
it.
less work. That's a belief
Right.
system. More money, less work.
And it can happen. Mm-hmm. There are people,
Does.
There are people that put it out there that get checks in the mail for reasons they never would have thought of. Class action lawsuit they were part of. They didn't know about.
$100 bills show up.
You know, $100 bills show up, exactly. So it's just don't. Again, it's about giving your power away.
Yeah.
People think that once they're in a relationship, it's different.
So
You
it's
know?
basically take ownership. Take ownership. It's not blame, right? It's like take ownership of
Take your
where
power.
you are.
Take your power back.
Yeah.
Be the powerful creator that you were meant to be.
And even learn what that means. Some people don't know what that means because they've never had power, they've never experienced it, right? So what will happen is as they put that energy, that vibration out there, they'll attract people who are empowered, who are in that space. I mean, I have to say, the people that come in my vibration are people who, like,
They'll find
I...
people that can give them the message. You know, like they might stumble upon the show, or they might stumble upon you, and then because they're looking for it, and then you're a
Absolutely.
match to provide.
I had a client today, same thing. I asked her, I'm like, how did you find me? And she said, because I'm always curious because of law of attraction,
Yeah.
I asked that energy to go out there and bring clients that I can bless that can bless me as well, right? And so, yeah, she said, I Googled you. Like I Googled mediumship in Rhode Island. And she goes, and you were the first one that popped up. I'm like, yes,
Nice.
right? But again, I'm not the first one that pops up for everybody,
Yeah.
right? I believe that her loved ones chose me or encouraged her, or there's something in her vibration that was searching, and I was the person that was going to be able to match her vibration and be able to relay messages that she could understand in this moment in time. Had it been a week from now, had she had some trauma or something, she may have attracted a totally different person, right?
Yep.
Makes sense.
Hi everybody, if you like what you watched, please subscribe on YouTube and like us on Facebook. And check out our website at alwaysconsiderthesource.com.
Hey, if you want us to come out to your location and do a live setup, we'd love to do that. Continue to send in your questions, and we look forward to interacting with you.
And remember, always consider the source.